All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome once again to another episode of the Remarkable Coach podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pacheco, and today with me, I have Roseanne Uwague. Roseanne helps superwomen save themselves so that they can continue saving the day. She works with high-performing women to provide strategies to improve mindset, prioritize self-care, and redefine productivity. Roseanne, old friend, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for sharing time and space with me. I love connecting with you, so I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So I'd like to start off these podcasts with just kind of inviting our guest to just talk a little bit about themselves. So just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, about what got you into coaching, why you're doing this, and maybe like a little bit about your passion, where that lies.
Sure. So I like to say that I started off my coaching very, very organically. My coaching is largely around productivity and clarity and strategy and just really holding people accountable to engaging in work-life harmony. And I like to say harmony, not balance. I think it started a while back. It was close to the end of the year and I sent out an email just to my girlfriends like, hey, we have 31 days left to the new year. What is your one goal? Let me know and I'll hold you accountable. Mm-hmm. And from there, I just got these amazing results and feedback where, people were so excited that things that they were procrastinating on forever really came to fruition. And I'm like, okay, great. And I really didn't do anything with it because I was working my full-time job. I was in human resources. I was volunteering in the community. I had a busy life and I'd much rather be jet setting on a plane than, just sitting down trying to figure out this whole business model. That wasn't my thing. I always wanted my 9 to 5, pay for my vacations, go home. Mm-hmm. Fast forward, one of my girlfriends said to me, Ro, I'm going to start a podcast. And I know that if I tell you that I'm going to do something, you'll hold me accountable. So can you be the project manager on this? Can you make sure we get this done? Long story short, she launched her podcast and it just became this thing where referrals were coming in and I started working with clients. And, I called it an accidental business, but it was really what I was supposed to be doing.
I love that. You'd be, or maybe you wouldn't be. Some people would be surprised at how many coaches that I have on this podcast, where it's a matter of like, we've got career number 1, career number 2, and then a trip and fall and stumbled into coaching. That's a really common thing because it's not, it's not something that you learn about at the career center at school, right? It's kind of something that you stumble into.
Exactly. And I think that's where it becomes even more passionate because you're doing it. It's kind of like this hobby or this side gig or whatever you want to call it. And then once you really start to get some footing, you're like, wait, I can make a life out of this. This can be my actual job. I can hire myself from this other company and really, make this my bread and butter, make impacts, create a legacy, and do all these amazing things. So I think it's just been an amazing time of discovering what I want to do because like you said, no one came to the career fair and said, who wants to be a coach, right? It was all the generic titles to your degree.
Yeah. Cool. You mentioned work-life harmony, not work-life balance. Talk a little bit about that. There's a very, specific choice of words there, right?
Absolutely. So when I think balance, I think like just, things being equal, maybe like 12 hours of work and 12 hours of play. Like who wants to do that? When I think harmony, I think of all the things working together. So it's not 9 to 5 job and then 5 to 9 side hustle and then, sleep. It's more like, okay, well, if I need to do something at 10 o'clock in the day, I'm going to do it. And then all the other things will just kind of align. So it's this flow, it's making trade-offs, it's alignment, it's just all the things working together, the ebbs and flows of life versus this hardcore, this is what you do now, this is what you do then. And then it's just this repetitive Groundhog Day, if you will.
I love that. I love that a lot. I think, the idea of work-life balance, I think like the traditional idea of work-life balance, right, is it's almost this kind of, a specter. It's like this impossible dream that you can't really get to because work and life are intertwined, right? I mean, it's not for the vast majority of us, certainly post-apocalypse, post-coronavirus. So many of us are working from home, right? There's the line of delineation between work and life is so blurred at this point that it's not like, balance is quite difficult. I love the use of the word harmony, I think it makes a lot more sense. I think it's more, it's just more natural. Yeah. I like that.
Thank you.
You also have mentioned on your LinkedIn profile about redefining productivity. What does that mean?
So for me, productivity really started, I mean, obviously, we go through different phases where we need to make sure that we're operating our peak performance. We need to make sure that we're productive, right? But I think when it really became like in my face was in 2013. So like I said, I was this girl who was just like jet set and like, who wants to go to Morocco? Who wants to go to Spain? Let's go. I didn't even have furniture in my living room because I was never home on the weekends. I was always on a plane going somewhere. So a lot of things changed, right? So 2013, I started dating this guy in January. So now I'm a girlfriend. So I have this new title. In July of the same year, I became his fiance, right? So now I have that title. And then in October of the same year, I became his wife. So I went from woohoo, who wants to do this to, oh, wait, I'm a wife, plus all the other things that I was doing, my HR job, serving in the community. 11 months later, hello, honeymoon baby, we had our first child. And then within 2 years, we had our second child. So I went from, I have all the time in the world, I can do whatever I want to do when I want to do it, to, wow, all these people are competing for my time, but I'm still a woman. Like, forget all the titles, forget all the hats and the roles. 28 years before I met this person, there were things that I wanted to do. I wanted to write a book. I was still me, right? So it was like, how do I honor my commitments? How do I love on my family without losing myself, right? Like, how do I maintain my identity? And I was like, I need to have a better relationship with time. So that's really where it started, where I had this baby and this newborn and everyone competing for my time. And I'm like, hold up, but I need some of it too. And then I realized I can't be the only one struggling with procrastination and analysis paralysis. Maybe I need to, do some trial and error, figure out some solutions and start to share them. And that's really how this productivity coaching thing was born. Like, hey, any other moms ever felt like this? What's working for you? This is what's working for me. So that's how that started.
Nice. I'm going to have to connect my wife with you. We just had our firstborn a month ago. So she's
congratulations.
Almost 5 weeks old now. I'm looking at my calendar up here. She's almost 5 weeks. And
I feel like you just emailed me 2 weeks ago that you were expected. How's it been, right? 5 weeks ago?
Yeah, so she's lucky enough, she's the director at a physical therapy clinic, and she was able to take 4 to 6 months off. She hasn't decided if she's taking 4 or 6 months off. But at the same time, she's trying to, parlay some of her experience into a little bit of, she can't legally call it physical therapy coaching, right? But it's chronic pain coaching, that kind of thing from home. And trying to find that work-life balance. And I suspect she's also potentially struggling with some of these titles that you're talking about, wife, mother now, right? But she's still her, and how to find that balance. So yeah, I'll have
Please
to
connect us. I'd love to talk to her.
Tell us more about your ideal client. We know women. Sounds like mothers.
Yeah, so that's a good question. My ideal client is a high performing woman who is a mom, but also has this passion project that they're trying to figure out, how in the world can I make this happen, right? Like, I already have all these things competing for my time. How can I really get this passion to turn into profit or even just reality? So that's who I like to work with. Whenever I talk to a marketing expert, they're like, well, you have to niche down. Tell me about, she shops at Trader Joe's and she has 2 children and she lives in New Jersey. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the pain point. So the pain points are really, she can't figure out how to add one more thing to her to-do list. Her to-do list is a mile long. She's, sacrificing self-care to make sure that her family's taken care of. So those are really the people that I want to work with. These professional women who just want more out of life and they want to give back more, right? So like, they want to increase their impact, but they don't want to burn out. Where is that harmony? Where is that line?
Yeah, but Ro, does she shop at Trader Joe's or not? We need to know.
I mean, sometimes she stops at Whole Foods. It depends on the price of gas and how far she wants to drive.
There it is. The price of gas is awful right now. So I think we're going to stick to What's closest to us? It's probably Safeway.
Right. See?
That's great. That's great. What does a typical engagement with you look like when you're working with a client? Do you work like month to month on a retainer basis? Do you have like a 6 month like minimum, or like, or do you do projects? What does an engagement with you look like?
So the engagement starts off with a complimentary discovery call. We hop on the phone, they fill out an intake form and say what they want to accomplish, what they think is holding them back. We get on the phone, I listen, and I
Mhm.
speak what I hear. So if it's a mindset issue, I'm like, well, maybe it's this lie that you believe. Maybe that's what's holding you back. If
Mhm.
it's a clarity issue, then I talk them through. Like every time I have a discovery call, regardless of whether the person signs on to work with them, I want to make sure they have a win and they have a next step where they feel like they have some breakthrough. Once we decide to work together, it's either one-on-one or it could be group coaching. And then
Mhm.
recently I started accepting corporate clients where I just go in and then work with either the employee resource group or work with a bunch of people with a similar pain point. But
Mhm.
it's really usually a 3 to 6 month contract. And we're working through the challenges, making sure that there's clarity, strategy, and really creating that work-life harmony from a tailor-made standpoint,
Mhm.
not an off-the-shelf, this is what you need to do, right? Because then you lose the harmony piece if it's just this blueprint should fit everyone. It really needs
Mhm.
to work with your life.
And when you say you go in and work with your client or the team, are you
Mhm.
physically going to a location, or are you working remotely through Zoom? You're based out of New York, is that right?
I'm in Jersey,
Jersey.
and the last 2 clients that I've had, it's all been virtual. I haven't done any in person yet during the pandemic. But what I would start off with is a keynote where, I just talk to a large group for about an hour, and
Mhm.
then we break them down into really small cohorts where they can get that individualized attention.
Mhm.
So one that I did recently, I had 5 people, and I walked them through this entire framework to really think through their legacy and the impact, and then figure out what are the goals that you need to create, what are the habits that you need to form, who do you need to become to
Mhm.
really achieve this goal, if you will. So it's really that small, intimate group coaching.
Mhm.
That's a sweet
Nice.
spot.
Yeah, good stuff. Can you want to talk a little bit about your how, your tactics, like how do you help people work on their mindset or redefine
Mhm.
productivity? What are some specific tactics that you use when you're working with your clients?
So I'll start off with redefining productivity. I think a part of why a lot of women or just people in general are burnt out is
Mhm.
because productivity does not have the part of wellness, right? So people think that productivity is the grind. And then when
Mhm.
you're no longer being productive, that's when you get to Netflix and chill or get a massage or, go
Mhm.
to the spa. I redefine productivity to be simply doing what you need to do when you need to do it.
Mhm.
So the most productive use of your time right now is doing this podcast because it's what you need to do.
Sure.
But if you're tired, the most productive use of your time is to take a nap, to relax, take a break. But people think that every time you take a break, you're not being productive. So
Right.
I'm really trying to disrupt the idea that productivity means grinding and hustling and struggling. Productivity is just doing what you need to do when you need to do it.
Self-care
So
is
the way
important, right?
self-care is important, right?
Yeah,
And people think it's this fluffy term. Self-care is mission critical.
sure.
And maybe if you're a guy, you don't use the word self-care, but when you say to your wife, hey, I'm gonna go play insert sport, that's your version of self-care,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
love that. You gotta figure out, and it's different for each person, right? Male or
absolutely.
female, everyone's got their own way of recharging their batteries, but
Exactly.
you just can't work 24 hours a day forever.
Right.
You
And you
got
shouldn't feel guilty for taking a
or
break.
not. Yeah, for
You're
sure.
actually more productive when you have a clearer mind, or like for me, one thing I talk a lot about is your peak performance time. If
Hmm.
we were doing this podcast at 11 p.m., I'd be talking so slow. I'd be like, wait, what did you say? That is not my peak performance
Me
time.
too.
You want to do this at 5 a.m.? Oh, I'm there. I'm alert. I'm clear.
Yeah.
So I think it's also about knowing when you work best, what is optimal for you. How do you work best? Do you work best blocking time off and just doing similar tasks? Do you like to chunk? Do you like to batch? Like what works best for you? So those are some things that I work through. Like when are you most productive? What
Hmm.
is preventing you? Talk about the mindset, talk about making realistic goals, right? So it's a whole framework that we go through. and I can share more if you have follow-up questions.
Yeah, so let's stick with the idea of peak performance time, right?
Mm-hmm.
How does someone know when they're the most productive? I mean, obviously, for some people, I feel like it may be very obvious, like, in the evenings, I'm sluggish, I'm tired, I'm ready for bed, and I'm up and at 'em in the mornings. For other people, certainly people that I've met, it's not always as obvious,
Clear.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good question because, like you said, some people, they just know, like, oh, I'm a morning person, I'm a night person. And it also depends on what's going on, right? So maybe someone is a morning person, but because everyone is in the house, they can't focus as much as they want to. So then they become a night person because the house is quiet, right? But I've actually, in my last cohort, I've had people say, well, I don't really know which one I am. So then we do trial and error. I say, okay, well, take this task on, try to do it, time yourself. Did it take you 20 minutes to do something that should take, a little bit longer, or did it take you a lot less to do something? So what you're doing is evaluating how you respond to a task and then just trying to figure it out from there.
Yeah.
So it's a very organic way of doing it. It's not like a formula or a checklist. It's more, well, let's test it out. If you're writing a paper,
have you met many people or any people, do you know if it's a thing for like that ideal time to vacillate? So I feel like for me, there are definitely days where it's like 4:30 in the morning, I'm up and I'm ready to crush the day. And there's other times where it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm wide awake and I'm ready to crush the day.
Yeah, I feel like that goes back to the harmony piece too, right? So while you want to work when you're most alert, it also goes back to what's going on in your life. So say, for example, you were the amazing husband that did the night shift. 4:30 in the morning is not going to be as easy for you, even though it's typically your peak performance time, because you just spent the whole, every 2 hours or every 1 hour, whatever schedule the baby's on, waking up every time. So I feel like that's where the harmony piece comes in, where it's not all or nothing. It's not one size fits all. It's, well, for this week, maybe peak performance for you looks like 7 o'clock in the morning. For another time, because of what you did the week, maybe you did a boot camp that ended at 12 midnight every day. Now that's going to look different.
So a big part of this idea of harmony that you're talking about is flexibility.
Flexibility. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. Talk about some of your wins with your clients. And while you're doing that, I'm going to turn on the lights because it's getting kind of dark in here. I'll be right back.
Sure. So one client that I had is a doctor. She's a urologist and she wanted to be a children's book author. And she reached out to another coach and pretty much they told her, in short, are you crazy? You need to figure out what you're doing with your life. Either you're a doctor or you're an author. You can't be both. So then she came to me and I'm like, you can be whatever you want to be, right? Like, who's right? You can be both. Why are we putting ourselves in boxes? Or if you're multifaceted and you have many gifts to share with the world, then we're going to share it with the world. So for her, it was one, the mindset of not accepting the limitations that other people placed on her, right? And then it was, okay, so I want to create this book, but I'm a urologist, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm active in my church, I have 25 other things that I'm doing. What am I going to do with this? So then talking through her day, like, okay, well, how much time are you spending on social media? Okay, Ro, don't go there, right? And then finding out where the lost time is. Yeah. And for me, like, I'll never tell my client, don't watch TV, don't go on social media. Sometimes your brain just needs that mindless entertainment, but you have to put caps on it if that's what your vice is, right? So for her, the win was the mindset shift of not being limited and just living this unlimited life and giving back the way she chose to, locating lost time, being able to be productive, meaning doing what you need to do when you need to do it, and that harmony, right? Like not neglecting your family for 6 months because you want to write a book. What does it look like to incorporate it and have all things work together?
I love that. I think it's a classic entrepreneurial kind of, not, I don't want to say problem, but stigma maybe, or just an issue that we face as entrepreneurs, that we're almost forced to cast off these externally imposed identities, right? About like you can't be both. You got to be one. Well, no, I don't.
Right.
I can wear 21 hats, right? I can wear one in the morning, right? When I'm in dad mode. I can wear one
Yeah.
later in the morning when I'm doing podcasts. I can wear one later in the afternoon when I'm, outside doing yard work or something.
Yeah.
And you can, you're active in the church, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it sounds like a big part of what you're talking about as well, is kind of helping people work through this, that I guess stigma of these externally imposed identities about who you should be, what you should be doing.
Absolutely. Like you used a very important word. I have a blog post that says remove the word should from your vocabulary,
Right.
right? Like people will tell you what you should do. And a lot
Yeah.
of times it's based on their fears, their scarcity mindsets, their own limitations. So they're like, well, who are you? Why do you think that you should be able to be a doctor and write a book?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I not to? Like, why not?
Yeah. Let's forget about what I should do and talk about what I could do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, these shoulds will really just have you in a box, playing small, shrinking, and not sharing your gifts with the world.
Totally. Nice. Awesome. What recommendations would you have for new coaches listening to this who are just maybe getting into coaching and they're kind of learning about everything that is coaching?
Yeah. I would definitely start with clarity in terms of one, what is your why? Why do you want to get into coaching? Because I think that's what's going to motivate you on the days when you're trying to figure things out and you're overwhelmed by information. Because a lot of times people think the issue is that the information is not there. For me, what I found, it's information overwhelm. So it's not that there's one way to do it. It's not one blueprint, but it's one finding what authentically resonates with you
Yeah.
and being focused on one thing, right? So a lot of times we like to multitask, which I personally think is a myth. So then you're like, okay, let me try this way, let me try that way. And it's good to try different ways, but I think you need to be consistent and not just dabble in multiple things because you really don't receive the results. So one I would say is get clear on your why. Why do you want to do coaching? Who do you want to impact? What strategy are you going to try first? And I would say have a ton of conversations with a bunch of people, not to find out what they're doing, but to get perspective and then figure out your own blueprints. You'll hear me talking about blueprints a lot because I don't like when people make you think that there's only one road to get to a certain result.
Sure.
I like when you receive options and then you work with what works best for you. So I would say have these conversations and then you define what works for you. So it's a lot about reframing, redefining, creating your own harmony. So
Yeah, the classic phrase that immediately jumps to my mind, and it's a weird one, is there's multiple ways to skin a cat.
yeah,
You've probably heard that before. I don't know what
I heard it. Yes.
like I don't know what the etymology is there. Why are there multiple ways to skin a cat? But that's the one that jumps
Are we
to mind.
skinning a cat?
Yeah. Why are we skinning cats? Cats are
It's
nice.
so,
Leave the cats
I
alone.
love that you said that. I was going to say that, but I'm Jamaican. I'm like, I don't think that's a Jamaican thing that doesn't resonate and nobody's going to know what I'm talking about.
No, I mean, I grew up in suburban America and it's a thing.
Okay.
I don't get it though.
Yes. So I don't know why we're skinning cats, but yes, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. Just figure out which way works best for you.
Yeah, I love that. So when you're saying focus on one thing, are
Yeah.
we focusing on one result or one process or?
One process.
Yeah. Okay.
One process, right? So say, for example, you're trying to gain clients. For you, it may be reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, having an organic conversation, building a relationship, and then converting them to a client. For someone else, it may be a funnel. Okay, so you need a freebie and then a landing page, and then you go through this funnel and 25 emails and you nurture them and you engage, right? For someone else, it may be calling on your existing relationships and saying, hey, I'm thinking about being a coach. This is what I want to do. Know anyone who could use my service? So those are three different methods. And I'm not saying one works better than the other. You can try all three, but do it systematically. Work on one, follow through. Try the next one, follow through. Versus you're doing all of it and you're kind of confused and you're just all over the place and not really getting any results. So I wouldn't say limit yourself to only one, but try one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. There's a couple books that jump to mind. One is Essentialism, if you're familiar with that one. I haven't actually read that one. The other one is The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And that's one of my favorite books, The One Thing. So that's kind of all about, figure out what is the lead domino? What's the one thing that you can work on today that's going to make everything else easier or unnecessary? And focus on that. You should check that one out. That's a great one. Yeah.
I have the one thing, it's on my read-in list, but essentialism I've never heard about. So I'm definitely going to check that one out.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Ro, is there anything else that you want to chat about that we haven't touched on yet?
I can keep you for 2 hours or 2 days straight. So, I mean, I would just say that for me, my ultimate goal is really to disrupt the grind and just get rid of the one way to success myth, help people get off the hamster wheel and not glorify the grind. And to bring balance to it, I believe that when you're working, whether you're working for a company or you're working for yourself, there is a certain amount of sweat equity that's necessary. There is an amount of effort and time and that you put into your business, but grinding is a very different thing. Like if you're posting on social media, oh, I haven't slept in 4 days, I've been working on my business, I'm actually not impressed. I feel sad for you, right? So I just want to disrupt that grind so we're no longer glorifying it. And just really looking at harmony, figuring out what that trade-off is, right? So for me, I may say, I want to take my kids to the playground. Maybe the trade-off is I don't do the dishes until a later time, right? Or, okay, one thing has to come off the list, but how do I create harmony on that list that I created? Like for anyone who's listening and you're struggling with your to-do list and it's a mile long, you created the list. A lot of those things are faithful, like the laundry is going to be there, all those things on the list, they're going to be there until you take them off. So just stop stressing over the list, be realistic, and just really pursue harmony in your daily life.
I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah, I'm way more impressed by the successful entrepreneur who is also a really good mother or father. And, they take time for themselves to do whatever brings them joy. And they're just smiling and happy all the time instead of exhausted with bags under their eyes. That's a life and you only get one.
Exactly. And I mean, if COVID has taught us anything, is that we need to seize the moment and really, really value time. So for you, like with your baby's only going to be 1 month when they're 1 month. They're only going to be 5 years old when they're 5 years old. So there's certain things that you can only do at certain stages. So we really need to value that time, seize the moment, and just engage in harmony and let all the other things fall into place.
Love it. Ro, where can people go to learn more about you, to connect with you?
So I'm the most antisocial person except for LinkedIn. So if you go on Instagram at RUWAGUE, I'll probably respond in 2 months, but you can email me at ignite@roseanneuwague.com, or you can visit my website and fill out a contact form, which is www.roseanneuwague.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and I actually do check those messages now that I've turned my notifications on. So let me just spell that. It's ROSEANNEUWAGUE. So ignite@roseanneuwague or roseanneuwague.com or Roseanne Uwague on LinkedIn.
Beauty. And we will add all of those wonderful links to the show notes as well.
Awesome.
Ro, thank you so much. It's so good to see you again after, I don't know when the last time we chatted was, over a year ago, I think. It's been a minute.
I don't know. It's COVID. All my days are scrambled, everything. Yeah. I don't know, but I'm glad
that we may as well have been 5 years ago. Who knows? So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our viewers and listeners for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Remarkable Coach. Cheers.
My pleasure. Bye.